Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. World Health Organization declares coronavirus outbreak a global pandemic, calls on governments around the world to take urgent and aggressive action to stop the spread. Speakers call for immediate action at a CBN consultative meeting on possible interventions to save the nation's economy following impact of coronavirus. New Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, receives letter of appointment from the Kano state government, says his appointment is from God. And film producer Harvey Weinstein sentenced to 23 years in prison for rape and sexual assault. Plus, we have business, sports and news from Abuja, the FCT. Later, international news from our London studios. And our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire, and Roku TV. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, says the agro-processing and health sectors will receive a boost to cushion the impact of oil prices on the nation's economy. Mr. Emefiele was speaking at the bank's second consultative forum in Abuja on the CBN's next line of intervention in key sectors of the economy. On his part, the Group Managing Director of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, Mr. Mele Kyari, is concerned about the drop in oil prices following the outbreak of coronavirus.
Only a few days ago, President Muhammadu Buhari constituted a committee to assess the impact of the coronavirus on the economy, with the likelihood of cutting down the 2020 budget and reduce the $57 oil benchmark.
Oil affects everything. As a matter of awareness, obvious.
The government has swung into action as economic experts seek solutions on how to salvage the impact of the disease on the nation's economy. The coronavirus, which has spread to over 100 countries, has led to a fall in the price of oil to about $30 per barrel. One after the other, both the Apex Bank governor and the Minister of Finance highlight the government's steps to boost the economy.
What we put on the table is that we will extend our intervention to areas like logistics. A large problem of the problem that we have today is delivering our food from farm to markets. We'll be looking at intervening in whatever needs to be done to move food and food products from farm to market.
Some sectors of the economy were already weak before the crisis, so the crisis is only exacerbating the situation, and we knew about that. And we're working at dimensioning each sector and fashioning out and prioritizing the sectors, how best to provide fiscal incentives for the sectors to grow.
In his address to participants, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC paints a gloomy picture of the global shock in the oil market and why Nigeria must act fast.
When your crude oil sells at $30 and you are dropping it by $8, it means that in the market, you are selling it at $22. And that's a huge problem.
Getting the economy working will require efforts from government. For most industrialists, how to provide infrastructure and cutting down cost of doing business must be examined all over again.
Cost of doing business can actually affect everybody. I mean, to tell you the truth, government lost so much money last year in the traffic logjam of Apapa alone. We as a company, actually our 3 companies lost over 30 billion in terms of, profit, which also the government will collect less taxes from us.
Thank you very much.
Key resolutions were reached at the end of the discussion. These include increased funding for infrastructure, investment in the nation's pharmaceutical industry, cut down medical tourism, and processing opportunities for farmers. Nigerians are, however, watching to see if these suggestions will be implemented in the days ahead.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is assuring the nation that his administration will pay close attention to the recommendations made by the participants in the Going for Growth roundtable organized by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The president spoke at a dinner organized for the participants at the State House Banquet Hall, Abuja. The participants comprise officials of both public and private sectors. The CBN governor said the roundtable made some recommendations that will shore up the country's economy, especially with the challenge posed by COVID-19. Those at the dinner include the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Minister of Trade and Investment, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Others are businessman Aliko Dangote, Mr. Jim Ovia, as well as other CEOs of banks. Well, let's examine further the strategies being adopted, and this is by the government addressing the economic impact of the spread and containing the spread. We're now being joined live from our studios in Abuja by a development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengu. We'd like to welcome you to the News at 10. And we must begin by asking that economists and financial experts are predicting global depression if the spread of the virus is not contained. How gloomy is the situation?
Well, it couldn't be any worse. Thank you for having me. It couldn't be any worse. We've gotten to the peak of what it can be. It's now a pandemic, and because it's a pandemic, it's going to get much more worse. But again, there's a flip side to it. The flip side to it is that I think this is also a wake-up call for our country. To begin to find how best we can be able to, develop our local capacities to be able to, be self-sufficient in a lot of, what we depend on now from external sources. For me, I'm sure that you might also be wanting us to talk about what the CBN did today, Growing Nigeria, and the dinner that was held thereafter. I would have been more, happier if I had more of our research institutes in that conference, because what we must be looking at now as a nation is how we're able to apply, most of our research outputs, into making certain that we can now be able to meet what you might be able to call our industrial, inputs and needs.
Following that consultative meeting, are you saying that you're not impressed with ways that the government is looking to addressing the impact this may have on the nation's economy?
Yeah, I'm saying that we would have been able to, probably draw on three broad sectors, what you might call your public sector, your private sector, and then your real sector. And then it is in the real sector you begin to deal with all the things that the central bank governor was trying to talk about, the agro industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the farmers, et al. Now, why do I say so? You see, the moment we're able to remember, we keep talking about this index case, that has come and he's not Nigerian. But the second index case, now the second person, who had been confirmed, has become an index case internally. And he had probably gone to, make a lot of contacts with numerous other persons that could now also become, index cases as they spread around. So it's important that we now look at, just not looking at our health facility from what you might be able to call the cosmopolitan level. It's time we probably now need to look at our health facility or our preparedness from that community level. If you listened to the professor that spoke from Kano, what he said was quite alarming, and everybody should be alarmed that in the whole of northern Nigeria, with all the kind of habitations we have here, you just have only one lab. And in this instance, we're not even talking about a normal lab. You'll be talking about what you call the bioterrorism migrate lab, which are the labs for P2 and P3. Now, if the central bank governor also mentioned the pharmaceutical industry, to what extent are we supporting our research institutes, to begin to grow medicinal plants and then use these, medicinal plants to be able to develop phytoproducts? To what extent have government been able to support a NIPRID that had come on air to say that they had, developed local sanitizers, made from purely, organic materials or phytomaterials? So it's not enough for us to talk about containment. What are we containing really? Have we been able to identify what this virus really is? And
I must ask you this question before we take our break, Doctor.
Is recovery.
Yes, because the finance minister announced that the 2020 budget may be reviewed downwards. How briefly, please, do you think this will play out regarding the fiscal outlook this year?
It would play out for the things that the budget is supposed to be providing. But I'm saying to you that it is just not only the budget that's an economic stream that our country can develop. That's the point I'm trying to make. We can also now develop some other financing sources or revenue sources that is non-budgetary.
All right,
that's the point I'm trying to make. Of course, it's going to have an impact when you scale down. And remember that budget is just a financial plan that you have cast in figures. It does not even mean that you have the 9 trillion. So if you're going to be scaling down, it simply means, of course, I mean, it's obvious, our revenue source is mainly from oil. And again, even the cost of producing that oil is not even going to be making it any easy for us if we are going to be, selling our oil anything less than $45. So the risks are there, but again, like I'm trying to say, the opportunities are even, more than the risks for me. If we're able to truly understand what we can do and how we should do it, especially focusing on our natural resources and our human resources, if we can be able to turn our natural resources into goods and services that can be consumed locally, and then they can begin to now struggle for their space in the international market space, and then our human resource into capital. And this is where research and technology that is locally,
We'd like to appreciate your time, development economist Dr. Emeka Okengwu. Thank you for your time on the News at 10.
Thank you.
When the News at 10 returns, bill to grant financial autonomy to local governments in the country passes second reading in the Senate. Plus, National Bureau of Statistics says Nigeria's total capital importation grew 42% in 2019, but declined in the fourth quarter of the year. That's on Business News. Please join us again.